Episode 115 of 5 Drinks to Midnight. Now, the show, we bring the questions, guests bring the drinks, we try to wrap up before midnight. Today, we are talking to Eboni Major. If you know, you know. But we're going to be talking about Dread River and her new release, Fortune's Fool. But before we do, like and subscribe, hit the bells, the whistles, leave a comment if you like what we're doing. It really helps us push this in the algorithm. Let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us. 5 Drinks or Midnight, 5 drinks, 5 questions. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a huge pleasure. So thank you so much. We're really excited to have you on the show. First question, what are we drinking first?
All right. The first drink is the release I did last December. So it's been a year. It's a Dread River Bourbon, Kentucky Bourbon.
Excellent.
That's what we're drinking first. We're drinking that neat.
So what can you tell us about it?
It's a little weird. Hold on. I want to make sure you hear. So I'm now sitting at like this bar that I go to every day in Birmingham. It's called Audio. So not every day. Since finals, I try not to be in here so much. So it's weird to be here and have them hear me kind of like do these things, but they carry this, so it's the best place to be.
There you go.
What can I say about this? So a lot of people that first started my career knew me from Bulleit, Kentucky, the big Diageo brands. And after the pandemic, end of 2020, I moved back to Birmingham, Alabama, which is my hometown. And not immediately did I start working in whiskey, because we all know what happened when I left my job. So it took a little bit of time. But there was this distillery downtown Birmingham, and it was very close to where my grandmother grew up and lived. Well, I say grew up, lived her entire life. And I started working with them as a consultant to improve the brand, increase awareness, just really change some things, front of house and back of house. And I felt the best way to like really integrate myself with the brand and do something really special was to create a blend. So I worked with a friend in Kentucky to source some barrels. So I picked them out myself, went through and blended them. We only purchased 6 barrels, so it's a 6-barrel blend. We ended up getting a little bit over 1,500 units.
Wow.
But it was the release that I did last year. At the moment, it was like really special. It was connected to hometown, you know, being able to do something here. So that's really what made me do that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cheers.
Cheers. Okay, when I released it, it was like 4 to 5 years old.
That's nice.
I still like it. As most things I do, it's 100 proof. I think later in the show we'll see the first time I haven't done something 100 proof. I'm trying to see what else. So it is, like I said earlier, it's a Kentucky bourbon. I can't really state where it comes from.
Sure. But
it is the 21% rye mash bill. So
nice.
A little bit of that spiciness, that same mash bill that I was familiar with at my previous job, and that's what I forced to put in this bottle. So we're really just going through samples, smelling, tasting what's there. Didn't know if I was going to do 2 individual lots or blended them together. So when we blended them together, the chef at the distillery at the time and I preferred it together over those singular. So that's how we came up with that blend, and it's sold. I think there might be a few bottles online still somewhere, but it sold pretty quickly, and I was really happy with it, with how it turned out from a liquid perspective, but also a community perspective. So.
Well, again, so not like question 1, but I mean, you did describe this as like, this is a tribute to home. And like, I mean, just based on the smell alone, if your home smells like this, that's a fucking glorious home. So like that's beautiful. I mean, what makes this home other than just being back in Alabama? Like, what makes this home for you? Like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for me, it felt like the perfect blend of both places that have really made me who I am. I am born and raised in Birmingham, left for college, and then I took my blending role through finishing my degree. So even though I had lived in Oregon for a couple months and worked out there, Kentucky was like my first true home base outside of Birmingham. So this felt like a way for me to bring what I love to do, what I love to talk about, all of that to a city that really doesn't have as much of a huge presence in Kentucky. So for me, when I say it's home, it's Kentucky and Alabama. It's what I love and learn to grow as home, and also the place that made me who I am at the core, but also the place when I was going through a very difficult time with my job that I came back to, and that kind of rebuilt me. So it was a really special project for me in general. So yeah.
Nice. Well, I gotta say, it's a really damn good rebuild because this is really fucking tasty. So this is just really good.
Thank you. So I was shocked with it. I mean, the barrels that we found, there were very few left, and I think um, there are a lot of brands that are currently out there and sourced. But when you are sourcing, it's really important to have someone who understands whiskey, understands what you're looking for, and can pick out those notes to create a great blend. Because if you're just buying openly blind and don't know what you're looking for, anything can end up in that final formula. So I am very, very pleasantly surprised with the liquid, with the notes of sweet apple, caramel. I'm really happy with how it turned out.
It is glorious. Well, I think that leads, perfectly into question one. So, question one: how does somebody that has a degree in food science and worked for potato chips
Yes.
get into the spirits business?
So yeah, after I finished my bachelor's, I started my master's that I'm still currently working on. And I was in Oregon, like you said, working at Kettle Chips. I was working at the chip factory, working as a food safety and food quality intern. So while I was out there, my focus was non-GMO, removing artificial colorings, things like that. But spent a lot of my time on the line, so the floor. But once my grandmother, who is now gone, the one that lived by the distillery, once she had gotten sick, I wanted to get closer to home. So I found my job only through Indeed.com. There was an internship online, and I said, "This looks really cool. This looks really, really interesting. This is something I haven't heard of before." And I decided to go through and research the company and do the interviews. So here I was, this food scientist, completely ignorant of what whiskey is. Show up the first day of work, like, why is the liquor clear? Had no difference, no understanding of the difference between distillate, maturate, all these things. And so I went into this job completely ignorant, had to learn distillation, beginning to end, fermentation, had to learn really everything. And for me, I think once you spend all that time really engulfing yourself in a culture and a lifestyle of a category, it's kind of hard to call whiskey a category. You tend to stay in it because you spend so much of your time and energy getting to know it and learning and putting all your into it, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's awesome. Like, what got you so into then, like whiskey itself? Like, what made you like stick with? I mean, because again, like food science, like you were doing like safety precautions kind of stuff at Kettle Chips, correct? From what we our social stalking is like you were more on like the safety end of like
Food safety,
procedures.
food quality, so removing, just making sure our ingredients were natural. I could have gone into like a food innovation role where you're doing product development. But yeah, what was your question going
Well, just
towards?
like what? Because again, like you said, you had to start all over and
Yeah.
learn distilling and
Oh, what did
everything.
I fall in love with?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what made you fall in love? Like,
Honestly, I think it's the fact that nobody else can do it, or very few people can do it. I think that makes me love it even more. Even when I tell people what I am or what I do, I can say, "Oh, I'm a whiskey blender," and they're like, "Okay, what's that?" There's no like one pager or this is what I do and how you do it. It's complicated. It's sitting at a computer, figuring out math, estimating ullage loss over years, doing computer formulas. Like yesterday, a friend texted me, is like, my 16 year has gone bad. Can you help? And I'm like, yeah, I'll help you with that. But I think that's what I really love about it is to everybody else, it looks like a frivolous job of just putting the liquor in a
yeah,
bottle. Oh, you smell and taste. That's not that serious. But what I do is really, really important. So I think that's what made me love it so much is that it was because I was intimidated at first. I remember telling my mom, it's like, this is a lifestyle because working on the Bourbon Trail is a completely different thing than being a whiskey connoisseur or enthusiast. When
sure.
you're working on the trail, it's like your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Every event, everything. So at first, I didn't feel like I was gonna really like it, or that I was going to be able to stay in it. But I found the distilleries, working with those. So when I started, we didn't have our own distillery when I started. We were contracting. Not only were we were contracting at first at maybe two facilities and then that doubled, triple. So being in a position to be working for the Bulleit brand while it was going through that transition of being a source to made liquid, I think really kind of solidified why I like being there because it was just so many challenges and I love trying to solve a problem.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's a fucking awesome origin story, and that's a great way to start it. So,
I used to think it was a boring story because everybody else had like, oh, my mother's friend brother worked here, or I wrote a letter, and I'm like, yeah, I just applied online. Just
question two, drink two. What are we drinking?
yes. So this is my latest release. It's not my personal release. It's the latest project I've worked on, and it's Fortune's Fool. It's just released today, actually, online at buy.fortunesfool.com. So it is a Indiana brand. Julie and her husband Steve are the people that I'm working on this for. So they are a little bit unique in that they are not sourcing any liquid. They have been purchasing liquid for about 3 years, 3 or 4 years, distillate that they've been purchasing and working with
Ah,
um, distilleries to produce their specific mash bill. They're using these really nice barrels out of Napa Valley, so not your traditional bourbon barrel that you would see. They're a little bit more expensive. So what I did with them is I met them through a colleague and they were ready to start their brand and they needed someone to blend it. They
yeah.
have these hundreds of barrels. And so we've been working together for about a year now. And this is our first release. So this one was only 10 barrels and it'll probably be sold out by end of year. So we're already getting ready to blend batch number two. We'll be blending that this month and next month. But this is a 62% rye. So this was different for me in many reasons. It was a pretty new mash bill in my previous time with my previous employer. We had worked with 50 and 70% rye from, some experiments, but this is the first time I was going to release something other than a 21, 36, or 95. And this is a 62%. It's also my youngest blend, and it's barely my first individual barrel strength.
Okay.
So as I'm like, I don't do these interviews a lot anymore. So
Yeah.
sorry if I'm dry. I
No,
don't
no,
do.
please look. We love
I
this.
don't.
Like again, it's just everybody getting to know you, and like I love
Yeah.
this. Like you get a little nerdy or whatever. Like it's all very interesting. So
I lost my love for these kind of things, so I stopped doing them. But
sure.
I missed your interview with Dread River, so that's why I was like, I promise on my next release I'll do one for you. So this is my first time talking about it, and they actually released it on direct to consumer today.
Nice.
But it's out of Indiana, and it's selling at a really good price of $55 a bottle. Um, but yeah, and its barrel strength, it came in at 109.6. So I am interested to hear your thoughts.
No, and again, off of that, because again, like it just showed up in like it just out of the blue one day, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool!" And then I went on, and then I emailed Juliet because I was like, "Oh, this is very interesting." So she's going to do the show as well. But like that was,
Yay!
but so off of this, well, first let's go ahead and we'll dig in, and then we'll get into some questions about that. But oh, oh, very nice. The nose is really great. Oh, all right. Well, cheers.
Cheers. It's so when I think of like under three barrel
Ooh,
strength, I don't think of this. I don't think of this, and that makes me happy. Under 3 years old, barrel strength. It's a really good whiskey.
this is really that's not.
I could drink a lot.
It's spicy, but not like overly spicy. Like it.
Yeah. Julie wanted that. That was one of the things that. So we went through a round of different formulas. We all tasted them at barrel strength, and then we did them at like a little bit of water. But Julie really wanted something that had that punch, had a little bit of that spice, and carry that weight. For me, it was important to still have a bit of suppleness, a little bit of sweetness, and make sure that it was smooth. So we went through. I went through 70 barrels. So of this mash bill, there's 70 barrels in the inventory, and in that inventory, I started off, which is again why I love doing what I do because a lot of people wouldn't know. I started off with a 6 barrel blend. I was not liking the way those 6 barrels were rounding off from what I had to select. And so we tried 8 and 10. And when you're trying blends with different barrel amounts, you're really adding in a lot of variability or options for me to be able to tweak things. And I really liked where that 10 barrel blend landed at. I'm really proud of myself. Like this is one of those scary moments, and being like completely transparent as a consultant, leaving out of Diageo, you have a stable check, and things happen, and you go on to consulting. You just you have to choose which products or which projects really fit who you are as a blender. Every time as a blender you put your name on something or you release something, you're worried about the integrity of your portfolio or the integrity of the brand and making sure, well, at least for me, I want to make sure I'm not just slapping my name on anything and making sure everything I'm doing has purpose. And this one was really, I enjoyed working with this team. I mean, I have zero, like, they were really fun to work with. We were very collaborative over the blends, working with a lot of reblends and really working and talking through what it is that the team wanted to see. And I think I did good. I think I did damn well for under three barrel
I
strength.
think you did. I think you did real fucking good. So like this is. Well, so then again, not question two, but this your first one is called the Prelude, and on the site they talked about all like the chapters that are going to be releasing. Are you going to be blending all of those as well, or was this just kind of a one first time kind of partnership?
No, so my work with Fortune Tool is prayerfully going to be on an ongoing basis. Like I said earlier, we just did batch one, and that they expect to be sold out by the new year. So I have a deadline with them to present 2 more formulas before end of year.
Nice.
We're already talking, and that's what I really, really, really love about working with Julie, and you'll talk to her,
Yeah.
is she values strategy sessions. I think as brands, the gap is sometimes not really looking at the inventory as a strategy, taking a sit down. So what she'll do, I'll sit down and say, hey, let's look at the inventory. Let's look at what we want our consumers to perceive these batches to be. How do we want them to feel from batch 1 to batch 2 to batch 3? How different do we want them to be? Where do we want this to drive them? And her valuing that input makes my job much smoother because I know what direction or what to think about when I'm blending. You know, when you're blending, you're not just blending for that release, you're blending for future releases.
Yep.
I can't pick the 10 best barrels for batch 1 and then only have the medium barrels for batch 2 and batch 3. So it's really, you bring a blender on for longevity. You bring a blender on to make sure that they are guarding your inventory from, you know, release to release. So I'm really excited about the Fortunes brand and being able to work with them on an ongoing basis. It's really been fun because I get to really dive into that strategy piece more than, you know, necessarily having to go out and do the marketing of it. But the strategy is what I love the most. And then even when we dump these barrels, we were trying to, they're nice barrels, as I've explained to you. They're from Napa Valley. We didn't want to scrap them, so we filled them with some distillate, and then we'll see in 7 years what that distillate might look like, because we know putting distillate in a used barrel, it's going to take us longer to age that. So we won't look at that in 5 years. We'll look at that in 7 and 8. So really, like, being able to work with them on things like that that's the best part, because, you know, it's like, it's not about just getting it in a bottle and being done. It's about, like, how do we figure this out for the future, and how do we make sure we're not, you know, creating waste, and how are we creating variety in our inventory? Because when we decided to reuse those barrels, it's like, okay, it was really my responsibility to find a distillery and a liquid to put in those barrels, and really thinking about where the inventory currently sat, what kind of distillate I wanted to be in there, because we know that there's a variety of distillates. There's corn, there's wheat, small syrup, there's all these things. So I love that. I love it. I love it.
Well, I mean, I think, again, a perfect setup for question 2. I mean, okay, so you talked a little bit about it in question 1, which is when you finish your master's, you want to do something in the spirits industry. You went from a steady paycheck to now kind of being, you know, a hired gun, but it has to be important because you want to put your name on it. But what is, like, your end goal? Like, are you looking to be like, you know, your own spirits like your own brand, or are you going to go like maybe the Dave Pickerel route and just kind of like, I'm going to be this badass chick that walks around and just blends whiskey for everybody?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It's funny because there's something specific that I want, but I am not putting it out in the atmosphere yet.
Yeah. No.
But I don't think a brand, and that's honestly changed in the past I wouldn't even say 6 months, in the past year.
Okay.
Over 2023, and I think after leaving corporate and jumping into consulting and doing other things, I've been able to see what it is that I like about what I do. I don't think I want to be the face of a brand.
Okay.
I don't know that I want my own brand. I know it comes with the territory of what I do, but a lot of people I don't know that they know. I really just started off as a lab rat. That was my only job. And that was the basis of my complaint with Diageo. I was doing 2 jobs for 1 pay. I was going across the nation, traveling, doing all this marketing, and that wasn't my role. And I really feel like I'm getting back to the root of who I am, the food scientist, the person who wants to research, the person who wants to make distillate products using byproducts.
Okay.
Waste materials, you know, and I just, right now, I don't know if I'm going to still be figuring it out in my 40s, but right now I'm enjoying where whiskey takes me and not really trying to set myself up as a face or a brand, because a lot of that gets lost. A lot of I've gone that route. I've tried it, and it's not been that beneficial for me being trying to do that route. And but I do. My friend that sent me the text about fixing his 16-year-old, he also was like, "Your barrel is sitting here itching to go." So I do have two barrels that I could release at some point, like small, like boutique things. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I don't know.
All right. No. Again, I think I think you nailed it perfectly with you just saying I'm enjoying where whiskey is taking me. I think that's the best part. I mean, fuck, just enjoy the ride and just keep, being you and doing what you do. I think that's just fucking awesome. I mean, again, we're enjoying it, so like that's the most important thing. So, question 3, drink 3. What are we drinking?
We're drinking an old fashioned with the Dread River.
Nice. Nice.
Cheers.
Cheers. Damn, yeah.
Emily did good.
Yeah.
Sorry, Emily's
No.
making my drinks for me. Not
Emily did good.
yes.
Like, are you a big cocktail connoisseur, or are you?
Yeah, I am. So I think what also I like to. I don't make a lot of drinks at home. If I do, it's a simple Manhattan, or bartenders are like, they're my people. I like to go out, see them, talk to them, let them do their thing,
Yep.
talk to the menu, because they teach me. I've talked about it a lot. Before releasing Bulleit Blender Select, a lot of that inspiration came from traveling to the bars.
Okay.
Going to San Francisco, going to San Diego, LA, New York, Florida. Really getting to know the bartenders, because again, they're your salesmen. They take what I do. I am responsible for perfecting the flavor in the bottle, but they take it beyond the bottle. They can make something. They can use the same liquid and make 5 different cocktails. Something very savory, salty, sweet, something acidic. They can really blow your mind when it comes to cocktails. So I'm always out at the cocktail bars, because I'm just impressed with what they're able to do. I love being able to go out, support them and their craft, because I think they really support me and what I do. So yeah, I'm always out.
Nice. No, I mean, exactly. I mean, we met at Martini's, so I mean that year in New York. So that was a fun little experiment, or not even experiment, but just a chance kind of meeting of just all of a sudden we were at Martini's together, and like that was.
I know that was amazing, because I was in New York for other reasons. And for the Diageo thing, and Whiskey Fest was going on the same day.
Yep.
And I got invited out, and I was like, yeah, I'll go, because love to see a new cocktail scene. Martini's was just like, it was mind blowing in itself, just very different kind of cocktail culture. So yes, I love going out. I'm gonna look for the best craft bar, dive bar, nothing to just really loving to see where those communities are in every city that I'm going to.
You are absolutely. I 100% agree with you that like the bartenders themselves, like they are your best salespersons, because you're gonna have a drink at some place and then you're gonna be like obsessed with it, and then you're gonna be like, hey, I want to make that at home. Like that's kind of, and again, you'll never make it like at home. Like that's, I mean, my friend Ethan Sugar works at Martini's, and he just makes the craziest cocktails, and it's just one of those drinks. One of their Fatwish rums has like 23 ingredients in it, and it's just like there's no way in hell I can make that at home. But again,
also one of those cocktails that you'll never forget because of that experience, and you'll know what's in it, the liquor, all of that, and that's going to play in front of your mind. Yeah.
But all right, so question 3.
Yes.
What piece of advice do you wish you were told earlier in life?
You're funny. Just say fuck you to people more often. I'm like literally, I don't know if it's just my experience, and it probably is. There's a very our industry likes to talk a lot about women in whiskey, and there's just something about being a black woman in whiskey that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. I'm a very direct black woman, and I think I would have just, I was in therapy yesterday. I'm living in my authentic self now, and I wish I would have done it earlier.
No,
That's it. It's just like fuck off, like you know.
that's fucking. I agree. Like again, I think that is just telling
I
people to
feel,
fuck off. Like,
if I'm being honest, I feel in this industry I have to do a lot more work to prove what I know, to prove my abilities. So sometimes it's a bittersweet moment, and I think that's why when I find people that I enjoy working with, I try to stick with it because it's not always that easy to walk in and really have strong opinions about how someone should release their whiskeys or create their sales or marketing pitches. But I think that piece of advice would have been great. But I was raised in a home where I had to be a respectable young
sure.
woman, so I didn't say it often. But I would.
No, I get it. I
Now I
mean,
wish.
that Southern hospitality, you got to be polite and nice to everybody, and a fuck you is, oh, aren't you sweet or aren't you precious? Like that. That's kind of the thing. But no, I
Yeah.
like that. I think that's damn good. Just being like, telling people to fuck off earlier than what, like that's the yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm like, when I went through what I did go through in my previous job, a lot of it was not wanting to make other people look bad or stuff like that. Not really want to talk about it. And now I'm just at a place where like really being who I am at my core every day is like the most important thing to me. Not having to hide how I feel or what I feel. So that would be my advice. Yeah, live authentic very early.
All right, question 4, drink 4. What are we drinking?
We are drinking a Manhattan. I
Woohoo.
decided to put the Fortune School in it. Look at those beautiful colors.
Oh yeah, there. I mean,
Nice and dark rich. Yes.
that is glorious.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's good.
Oh yeah. Oh fuck yeah, that is amazing. That is wow. That sweet vermouth
That's
off of that spicy rye is just
good.
really
Yeah.
nice. That is.
That's really good. I like that. I usually do like Wild Turkey 101 in my Manhattans, but this is really nice. I like that rye. I love this. Yeah.
Yeah, this is very nice. Mm. All right. So, question 4.
Yes.
Being a blender, do you have any tips or tricks that we as common drinkers, we talked about the Instagrammers and everybody that are like giving us tasty notes, but like there's been the one where you smell your elbow and everything along those lines. Do you have any tips or tricks on when we taste? Like, how should we be tasting?
Yeah, so like that is. Do I want to tell y'all that?
Right? I mean,
I don't know. I'm joking. You should be tasting in order. Like, one, if you're tasting, um, you're gonna need to taste multiple. You're gonna need to taste like two. It's hard to open a bottle and smell it and taste it and be like, yeah, I love it. Of course, you're loving it because you're tasting it with that. It's good to put like with like. Like we don't compare apples to oranges, and you have to be aware of what it is that you're drinking and how you're drinking it. The reason I started neat with the Dread River, we started neat with the Dread River. The 4 to 5 year old is older, but it's suburban, so it's a lighter flavor profile because it's majority corn. And then we moved into the Fortune's Full at the 62% rye. So when you're tasting, start in your lowest mash bill order. So you're gonna start with the lightest of corn. If you had a 99% corn and a rye, if you tasted that rye first and then tasted that corn, you're gonna think the corn is merely water. You're gonna think it's so bland, it's so nasty because you just went for something with a very high spice flavor profile to something very low. So when you're tasting, make sure you put things in order of that. Like make sure you're looking, and it's not easy if the brand isn't transparent, but you can look that information. But just making sure that you're tasting in order. You definitely need to add water. Again, you got to put the proof in perspective. Add a little bit of water if you need to, because we don't taste at full strength. We taste at 20% alcohol. The addition of H2O to ethanol is going to open up those tannins. It's going to open up those molecules for us to really be able to taste them and smell them more and have a more discerning palate at 20% than you would at a 40, 45. So also keep some water with you. And really, like, take your time. I think sometimes, especially with tasting, when you record yourself, it might put a little bit of a different, I don't know, expectation to really know what you're tasting. But take your time. I think like tastings for us, it would be about an hour process. We would maybe pour a drink and then smell and taste and then come back. So it takes a little bit of time for it to.
So like an hour per barrel almost, or not like?
Oh no, no,
Oh,
no. Um,
again, not looking
an
for any.
hour per sitting. Per
Okay,
sitting. So like you smell and taste it, depending on how many samples you have, 5 to 7, and then you come back and do it again a little bit later. It also depends. I think one thing that would be good for look at me, distilleries are gonna be like, Ebony, what are you doing? How much experience do you get with distillate? Like White Dog. Like, I think getting to see White Dog as a blender, I did most of my work with White Dog because
okay.
that's where most of that flavor composition is in that process, and then figuring out how that flavor is going to transform to the mattress. So I think, like, if you can, where you can, get some White Dog too and start training and smelling on that, so you can make that correlation between what's in the final product and then what comes off the still, if that makes sense.
No, I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Again, would love that because again, just trying to be a better taster.
And
So
the more you taste, the better you get. You know, for
yeah,
me, I didn't land my job by just tasting what they gave me.
okay,
If I would have only tasted what I was responsible for tasting, I wouldn't have had my job. I was walking in, here's my 50 for the day, here's my 50 for the day, here's my, like, just always being eager to pour, to taste, to see what's different. Even if, it seems minuscule, it seems pointless, but being able to smell it. And taste it. But yeah, friends were sending out like innovation samples or something like that.
yeah,
Like, hey, send me something.
yeah,
What
yeah.
you working on? There's so many projects I've worked on behind the scenes that don't get to market because as the innovation R&D part.
Well, again, like you keep with question 2 and 3. You talked about your friend that texted you, and I saw your Instagram story about that.
Yeah.
So he was willing to send you 750s, and he only asked for 200 mils. So if you want to send me 200 mils too, like I'd be happy to taste them with you.
Isn't that crazy? Like, even me, I'm like, no, no. Like, when I'm thinking, I love what I do, and it's
Yeah,
so small. But I'm like, I don't want those other 500 meals because they could go on the shelf.
yeah,
Just give me the bare minimum.
yeah.
Give me 200 mils. I'll use 30 for my first tasting, 30 for another repour, and then I might use 100 for like blends and sample shipments. But I really try to use as little as possible, to not to disrupt taking too much from the barrel, because whatever I take for sampling is going to impact the final ABV. And that's the thing, is like, when blenders talk about me as a blender, I am always going to talk about math because I hate math. I hate math. I have learned to know and love and manipulate Excel um, because of it. But you're taking a sample out, that could, when you put a barrel in, it tells you how many starting gallons you had. You have 53 gallons. It is not accounting for sample 1 through 10 that you took over the past 5 years, and you don't know how many times you drilled into that barrel. So those are just things like, I can't blend. I always have to blend for a lesser volume than I really want to ensure that it comes out. There's so much math in blending, so much.
Again, that's no good for me. So that's
Because you don't dump it, you get your samples, you might ask for samples again, but you don't see that final volume until you finally dump those barrels. You don't know that barrel is going to be half empty or not. You can go push it, shake it, or whatever, but you don't know until it's time for that final dump.
so. Question 5, drink 5, our last drink of the night. What are we drinking?
We are drinking a highball with fortune tool.
Very
Look
nice.
at us.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to like end that.
Yeah, highball is just, that's a nice way to just clear your palate and just,
Yeah.
yeah.
The Aperol Spritz is usually like my go-to. I come here and get an Aperol Spritz, add fresh orange juice. Because I'm like outside of whiskey, I'm not always into whiskey. I think outside, I learned to be very objective with my job. And when I'm not in the lab, I think I try to drink other things. So this kind of reminds me of an Aperol.
All right.
Like a little palate cleanser. I like that.
So then is like an Aperol Spritz, is that like your kind of go-to drink? Is that like your...
In the summertime, so I live walking distance from here. So I walk here, they'll give me an Aperol Spritz, and my whole day is just like, oh, I can breathe.
Nice.
Blame Italy. When I went to Italy with Marianne, I fell in love with Aperol Spritz, and I can't get away from it.
Nice.
I can't get away from it. You had Devin's from Leva.
Yeah.
Yeah, so spritz are kind of like my new thing.
Yeah. Shit, like, yeah, the Aperitivo or whatever, the Burvitivo or whatever. Yeah, her, those are absolutely amazing. Like, she was so fun to talk to. So, like, that was... All right, so question 5 comes down to the flip of the Whiskey Wednesday coin. You can flip it, you can spin it, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to answer. The coin will give us the answer, but you don't have to answer. But feel free to answer if you want to. But so,
my problem is I say what I'm thinking all.
There we go. So, as a whiskey food expert, do you consider yourself a picky eater or drinker?
Oh, you should ask my family this. You should ask my ex-fiance this.
I'm
You
gonna
should ask the people I hang out with this. I should have known I was going to be a whiskey blender in my early life. I have always been a picky eater. If my taste buds are set, that's what I want. I went to the grocery store yesterday, wanted pickles. I bought dill pickle chips, dill pickle, salad toppers, actual dill pickles, and some dill, fresh dill out of the produce section. I've always been a picky eater. I've always known exactly what I want to eat. Not like I'm still one of those girls like I don't know, but I know when I don't want something. But what's gotten worse is I can tell when my food is made differently because it doesn't taste the same.
Gotcha.
I eat pretty much the same things. I'm a very support small kind of person, so I eat at the same places. I can tell when something is made different. It's weird as hell, but if I go to Publix and a different person makes my sandwich and it's not the same ratio or it's too much cheese, I can taste too much cheese. I am the most picky eater. Picky in the sense of consistency, and I know what this should taste like. Yes.
So immediately we already know it's a fuck yeah. So it's totally cool.
Yeah, I am one of those. I apologize to my friends. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to get this fixed.
All
I'm one of those people. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Awesome.
You just know when something, especially if you've eaten something for so long, you know what it should taste like. And that, I don't know if the job really changed, or it probably did make it worse, because it did. It did. Let me tell you, one time I went to a bar in Kentucky and I ordered a glass of Bulleit and it didn't taste right. And my manager, I told him the next day, he's like, well, Ebony, you were supposed to buy the bottle off the shelf and bring it back so we can taste it and see. So I think in my job, having such a discerning palate and having the role of a flavor guarding and hey, you're supposed to keep this consistent year to year. They're not supposed to taste the difference in the years. You're supposed to see this whiskey as we see whiskey as a 20-year, 30, 40 heritage brand. You don't want to track the changes of the liquid over time. Yeah. You want to see it the same. So it's definitely worsened how picky I am. I am very picky. If someone can take on my food bill, I'd be happy.
All right.
My food bill, yeah. Very picky eater, sorry.
Ebony, that is 5 drinks down, 5 questions answered. Thank you so much for joining us. Again,
thank you for having me.
I hope that we can drink together soon, either be in Alabama or New York or Kentucky or wherever you are, but I hope we can meet up very, very soon. So cheers to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. This is really fun. Like I said, I don't do these as much anymore. I think the last podcast I probably did might have been Rashawn with Whiskey Lifestyle, and that was early 2022. So thanks for having me. There's Emily in the back. Emily, say hi.
Hi, Emily.
She's the one that made all the drinks tonight. So
excellent.
Thanks to Emily for all of our drinks. Thanks for having me.